all are well and staying at home. I am Mansi Choubey, and through this video I am going to explain you the topic that is operating system and its functionality. So what is an operating system? An operating system is the system software which is inside your computer system, and it works as an interface between the user and the hardware. Now see in this diagram, what is hardware? Basically, hardware is nothing but the CPU, which is the brain of our computer system. Input-output devices, that is keyboard, mouse, printer, scanner and all. RAM, which is the main memory of our computer system, and other than that is the secondary memory, that is our hard disk. And as I am going to access my system, I am going to access these devices only. So, is it means our user able to access the hardware devices directly? No, the user access these devices only with the help of operating system. So here operating system works as an interface between the user and the hardware. Now the next point is why there is the need of operating system. If the operating system is not there, what would be the scenario? The scenario would be whenever the user wants to execute this hardware devices, she has to write a program for it, and through that program she will access these hardware devices. Now let's consider one example. Suppose I have one Word file and I want to print it. But as I don't have an operating system, I don't go directly to the print option. I have to invoke my printer to print that file. In the same way, suppose I have to execute some process through CPU. I have to give instructions to CPU that please execute that process. So in this way, the communication between the user and the hardware is very complex and very so that's why there is a need of one authority which instruct you, which guide you what to do and how to do. That's why the requirement of operating system is must. Now, the next point is what is the functionality of operating system? So, the functionality of operating system is process management. Process management.
You know that a process is a program in execution. Whenever we have to execute something, we have to give instructions to CPU in the form of programs. Now, the important is how to manage all this. So, number one, managing the life cycle of a process. How to manage the life cycle of a process? First is creation, then running, then terminate. Create the process, make it in running form, then terminate. Second is schedule the process. Means arrange the sequence of the process. Whenever two or more processes wants to execute, like P1 and P2, it's the responsibility of operating system to schedule this and also decide how much time is needed by the process to execute, and this will done by CPU. The process has to execute in the given time mentioned by the CPU. Next is, now the next important is memory management. This is the most important function of operating system, how to manage the memory. Here in memory management, we are talking about the main memory of our system, means RAM, which is one of the fastest memory in our computer. CPU can access only main memory, not the hard disk. Now see the important task of main memory. Very first is keeping track of which part that are currently in use by the process. Second is deciding which process and data need to move in and out from the memory. These all are done in memory management. Third one is allocating and deallocating memory space as needed. It means which process wants to allocate and which process needs to deallocate is all done by operating system to manage the space. Now the next important is file system management. In file system management, we have many types of file system, such as disk-based file system like FAT, extension 4, NTFS, etc. Next is optical disks such as CD and DVD. Other is network file system. So here in file system, kernel is responsible for the following things. Very first is creating and deleting files and folder. Means kernel is responsible for creating the file and deleting the files and folder. Next is storing files on the disk. How to store the files on the disk? To manage the space, kernel will take care of this to store the file. Next is manipulation of files like rename, change, permission, copy and more. And all these are managed by the kernel of operating system. Next is device management. Means to manage input and output device. In this, we have to manage monitor, keyboard, hard disk and all other hardware devices. You know, operating system works as an interface between the user and hardware. So there are hardwares which are managed by operating system with the help of device driver and interrupts. So these two will manage the devices of the operating system. Next is protection and security. It means controlling the access of process or user to the resource defined by the kernel. Now see in this, one memory is here in which process P2 and P3 are already allocated with memory. Now this is the responsibility of kernel not to allocate this memory to some other process. Other important function is security. The security is from number 1, attacks of viruses. Number 2, prevent unauthorized use of a system. Means nobody can use without permission of the user. Next is theft of data. Theft of data. That's all. So these all are the security of operating system. Now, see this.
Computers are used for so many different tasks. Playing games, watching videos, running calculations, communicating and collaborating. Computers today are a mixture of different types of hardware and software. But there is one program that brings them all together, and that's the operating system. To consider what the operating system is, let's go back in time to the invention of digital computers. They could handle around 5,000 complex calculations per second. Impressive for the time, but today's supercomputers perform nearly 34 trillion calculations per second. Programs were written on punch cards, pieces of cardboard with holes. These were fed one at a time into the Central Processing Unit, or CPU, and enabled the earliest form of computer, batch processing. In some cases, one person was in charge of making sure the cards were fed in correctly. Their job was to correct jams and schedule when the next program could be run. As computers became faster, they were able to process punch card tasks quicker than the cards could be fed in. There was another problem. Different computers' resources, that is, the components within them such as RAM and the devices attached to them such as printers, were all different from one another. A programmer had to write very different types of programs specific to the machine it would be running on. Was it this card? Or that card? Oh no, it's all getting a bit complicated, isn't it? The solution was to write a brilliant piece of software called an operating system, or OS. The OS would take over the tasks common to many programs. Today, operating systems control the hardware of the computer. They manage and allocate resources and provide an interface for the user. Go on then, turn on that computer and we'll see what happens. An OS is one of the first programs that runs when a computer is turned on. Most programs start the same way. The computer issues lines of code as commands to prepare all the important elements, like the screen and the network. The operating system holds the collection of all the common commands and segments them, rather like putting them into a library, from which the other regular programs can borrow codes.